What would you do if you were the one supporting your family, but they still treated you like you were nothing? For years, I had been the one keeping my family afloat, transferring money, paying bills, covering for Derek's mistakes. But at my niece's birthday, I was humiliated by my brother and parents left at the door, excluded. They wanted to treat me like I didn't belong, like I wasn't enough. So I decided to stop giving. Stay tuned to see how I took back control and made them realize just how much they depended on me. My channel's struggling, so if you're intrigued, please comment 1 to help me out. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Subscribe to see how it ends, and I wish you all good health. I stood on the doorstep of my parents' house, clutching a wrapped dollhouse in one hand and a bag of presents in the other. The decorations on the porch were cheerful, pink balloons swaying gently in the breeze, a big glittery sign reading, "Happy Birthday, Princess Sophia." The sound of children laughing echoed from the backyard. I inhaled deeply and rang the doorbell. The door swung open and there she was, my mother, in her familiar pastel cardigan. The sweet scent of vanilla cake drifted from inside, but the moment she laid eyes on me, her smile faltered. "We don't want you here today," she said coldly. I blinked, stunned. "What?" Then I heard the voice behind her, smug and sharp, unmistakable. "This is no place for losers," my brother Derek sneered, stepping into view, his arms crossed, a slow grin spreading across his face. It hit me like a slap. Before I could find my words, he scoffed, tilting his head. "Man, showing up like this? Cringe," he chuckled, shaking his head. "Sophia doesn't even care if you're here. Why don't you do yourself a favor and leave before you embarrass yourself?" The familiar wave of discomfort washed over me, the same feeling I'd always had at family gatherings, holidays, or dinners. The way they looked at me, the dismissive glances at my messy hair, my wrinkled hoodie, the dark circles under my eyes from too many sleepless nights coding. I tightened my grip on the gift bag, swallowing the lump in my throat. Barely contribute? Cringe? Sophia doesn't care? A memory hit me hard. Just 6 months ago, Derek had come to my apartment, desperate. "Man, I just need a little help with Sophia's school," he had said, feigning humility. "It's just temporary. You know I'd do the same for you." I hadn't hesitated. I transferred the money that same night, and now I was the loser. I glanced at my father, standing behind them, his eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. My mother shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. It felt rehearsed, like they had all quietly decided that I no longer belonged here. I could already hear her inevitable excuse if I confronted her. "It's not about the money, sweetheart. It's just the way you present yourself." Right. Because in their world, success wasn't measured by intelligence or skill. It was measured by designer suits, flashy cars, and golf memberships, not by sleepless nights debugging code, not by patents, not by six-figure contracts from Silicon Valley companies that never required me to leave my apartment. To them, I was still that awkward, messy kid who didn't fit in. A sharp twist of pain, anger, and disbelief tightened in my chest. I could feel the words rising, the protests, the outrage, the demand for an explanation. But just as quickly as the fire ignited, it died down. I exhaled slowly. "Fine," I said, stepping back from the door. "If that's how you feel." I turned, walked to my car, and placed the presents in the passenger seat. But as I was about to shut the door, I caught a glimpse through the window Sophia, running around in her birthday dress, laughing as she played with the other kids. She had no idea what was happening at the front door. For a split second, I almost reconsidered. Then, Derek's words came back to me, his smirk, his taunting laugh. "This is no place for losers." I clenched my jaw and slid into the driver's seat. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as the cold realization settled over me. For years, I had convinced myself that I was part of this family, that I mattered, but I wasn't a brother, I wasn't a son, I was a walking ATM. No place for losers, huh? All right. Let's see how they do without this loser funding their lives. I didn't turn my phone on for 2 days. I needed the silence, no guilt-tripping texts from my mother, no half-hearted "let's move past this" from my dad, and definitely no smug, taunting messages from Derek. I wanted them to sit with their decision, to feel what it was like when I wasn't there to pick up the pieces. But on the third day, curiosity got the better of me. I powered on my phone. 27 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 32 texts. My lips curled into a smirk. There it is. Tut. I scrolled through the messages, reading the highlights. Mom, I don't know why you're acting like this. Derek didn't mean it. Call me. Dad, let's be reasonable. You know how family works. Derek, are you serious right now? Grow up. Mom again. Sophia's been asking about you. I rolled my eyes. Oh, now she remembers I exist. The last message caught my attention. Emily, Derek's wife. I'm sorry. I didn't agree with what happened. Please call me when you can. That one gave me pause. Emily had always been quiet, always went along with whatever Derek did, but something about her message felt different, urgent. I wasn't in the mood to call anyone, but I typed out a reply. Me, why are you apologizing? 3 dots appeared instantly, then her response. Emily, because Derek's losing his mind. I raised an eyebrow. Intriguing. Me, define losing his mind. This time she hesitated, then, Emily, money's tight. He was counting on you for Sophia's birthday party. He already spent way more than we had because he assumed you'd cover it later. When you didn't, he flipped out. Bad. I snorted. Of course he did. For years, I'd been the invisible safety net beneath him, always catching him before he hit the ground. This time, I cut the strings and let him fall. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the half-eaten takeout container on my desk. Beside it, my monitor glowed with an open terminal window, strings of Python code running across the screen. I had been debugging something important before this, something that paid my bills, something that actually mattered. And yet, here I was, caught up in family again. A normal person would have left it alone, let Derek deal with the consequences of his own arrogance. But I wasn't feeling particularly merciful. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see him squirm. That evening, I drove past my parents' house not to go in, just to watch. And it was glorious. The decorations were gone. The pink balloons deflated in the trash. The glittery, happy birthday Princess Sophia banner sagged on one side, half torn from the wind. Derek's car was still in the driveway, but the smug energy was gone. Instead, I saw movement behind the curtains pacing. I rolled down my window just in time to hear something beautiful, Derek's voice, shouting, I don't care, Mom. He's doing this on purpose. He's trying to humiliate me. I bit back a laugh. Oh, buddy, you did that all on your own. I couldn't hear my mother's reply, but I could imagine it, the usual coddling, the same delusional excuses. Derek isn't the problem, sweetie. The world is just unfair to him. Yeah, sure. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emily. She was sitting at the dining table, her face buried in her hands. Even from a distance, I could tell she wasn't just tired, she was done. I'd seen that look before, on my own face. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Emily again. I answered. Talk to me. She sighed. Derek's out of control. Define out of control. He's been screaming at your parents for hours, blaming them for not convincing you to fix this. He's furious because now he has to... She hesitated, then exhaled sharply like she was bracing for impact. Now he has to sell his car to cover the party debt? I blinked, then I laughed. Oh, the irony. The same brother who mocked me for driving a used, practical car, the same guy who said real men drive luxury. Now he had to sell his overpriced status symbol because he overestimated how much he could leech off me. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. Tell me you recorded it, I said, still grinning. I should have, Emily admitted. You would have loved it. Oh, I already do. She was silent for a moment, then quietly asked, Can I ask you something? Go for it. Why did you put up with it for so long? That question sobered me in an instant. Flashback. At 13, I was hunched over the family's ancient desktop computer, fingers flying over the keyboard. I'd just finished writing my first program, a basic script that solved algebraic equations. Derek, then 16, walked in and took one look at the screen. He scoffed. You seriously spend your free time doing this? I beamed, eager to explain. It's a basic solver. You input an equation and it... Jesus Christ, nerd. No one cares. He slammed the monitor's power button and the screen blinked to black. I stared at it in stunned silence. My mother, walking by, chuckled. "Sweetheart, you should go outside more. Do something normal for once." Normal. That was the first time I realized that no matter how smart I was, my family would never care. Present day. I rubbed a hand over my face, still caught in the weight of Emily's question. I hesitated. I thought if I just kept giving, eventually they'd see my worth, that they'd treat me like family instead of an ATM. She finished for me, her voice soft but understanding. "Yeah." Emily inhaled sharply. "Yeah." And somehow, for the first time, I believed her. I stared ahead, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. I started again, then paused. "I thought if I kept giving, they'd see me for what I was, not just what I could give." Emily took a breath. "Yeah, I get it." And somehow, for the first time, someone in that house actually understood. That night, I slept like a king. By morning, Derek had already listed his car for sale. My mother had left me 3 voicemails, each one alternating between, "You're hurting your family," "Your brother is struggling," and "Please be the bigger person." I deleted them all. By the end of the week, Derek's car was gone. By the end of the month, Emily and Sophia were gone too. Turns out, once Derek had no one left to exploit, he turned on her. And Emily? She wasn't as weak as he thought. She took Sophia, filed for divorce, and moved in with her sister. The last text I ever received from her was simple. "Emily, thank you." And Derek? Well, Mom and Dad took him back in, of course. But with his credit ruined and his once lavish lifestyle dismantled, he wasn't quite the golden boy anymore. So much for no place for losers. Nat, I sat in my apartment one night, sipping whiskey and scrolling through his newly made GoFundMe page. Hard times, just trying to get back on my feet. Anything helps. I exhaled a laugh and turned off my phone. No place for losers? Guess he finally learned where he belonged. Derek's downfall was sweet, but the best part? He still didn't get it. Even after selling his car, moving back in with our parents, and watching his wife and kid walk out on him, he still played the victim like the world had wronged him, like I had wronged him. And oh, he was furious. I knew it the moment my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Derek, hope you're happy. You ruined everything." I smirked, blocking the number. A minute later, my email pinged. "Derek, you need to fix this. You're selfish. You don't even care about Sophia." Blocked. Then, 5 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I didn't answer at first, just let him stew on the other side of the door like a desperate salesman who knew the sale was lost. Then, bang, bang, bang. I rolled my eyes. "Relax, I'm coming." When I opened the door, there he was, disheveled, sweating, looking more desperate than I'd ever seen him. "You think this is funny?" he spat. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I think it's hilarious." His eye twitched. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Oh, more than you know." His jaw clenched. "Sophia cried when Emily took her. You don't care about that?" I scoffed. "Sophia cried because her father is an idiot who tanked his own life. Don't put that on me." I blinked, then I smiled. "I think I'm free." Derek flinched, just a little. Then his face twisted in rage. "You're a selfish fool." I sighed. "You're still here?" Derek clenched his fists, chest heaving, but he wasn't a fighter. He was a talker, a manipulator, a beggar, and right now, begging wasn't working. "This isn't over." He pointed a finger at me like a cheap movie villain. I gave him a slow, mocking nod. "Sure, can't wait for part 2 of your sob story." Then, with all the dignity of a drunk raccoon, Derek stormed off down the hall, muttering curses under his breath. I shut the door and exhaled. What a joke. A week passed, then 2. No more texts, no more emails, no more surprise visits. For the first time in years, I had peace. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. "Emily. Emily, you should see this." Attached was a screenshot of Derek's latest brilliant idea, a Facebook post, long, dramatic, full of half-truths and sob stories about how some people turn their backs on family when times get tough. Real men don't abandon their nieces just to prove a point. And, of course, the cherry on top. It's okay, though. I've always been the strong one. I'll get through this on my own. I nearly choked on my drink. The strong one? The guy who lived off my money for years? The guy who threw a tantrum because I stopped paying his bills? Oh, this was too good. I cracked my knuckles, grinning like the villain he thought I was. Time to end this. I didn't comment on the post. That would have been too easy, too public. No, I wanted something better, something permanent. So instead, I sent him a text. Me. Strong men don't beg their younger brothers for rent money. Me. Or whine when they have to sell their car. Me. Or let their wife and kid walk away because they're too busy feeling sorry for themselves. I waited. And sure enough, 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then disappeared. For the first time in his life, Derek had nothing to say. Good. I set my phone down, leaned back in my chair, and exhaled deeply. It was over. For the first time in years, I was free. And Derek? Well, Derek was finally learning what it really meant to be alone. Silence, that was the best part. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up to texts asking for money, guilt-tripping voicemails, sudden emergencies where I was expected to swoop in and fix everything. Derek had finally shut up, or so I thought. Exactly 1 month after I sent him that final text, my phone rang. My mother. I should have known it wouldn't be good. Sweetheart. Her voice was thick with forced warmth. We need to talk. I sighed, already rubbing my temples. Let me guess Derek's struggling, and you want me to fix it. There was a pause. It's not about fixing, honey. It's about forgiveness. I let out a short laugh. Oh, that's what we're calling it now? Don't be cruel, she snapped, her patience slipping. We're having a family dinner this weekend. Your father and I think it's time you and Derek sat down like grown men and worked this out. I glanced at my calendar. Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Oh, so they even picked a time for my public shaming. How convenient. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. Let me get this straight. You want me to sit across from the same brother who called me a loser and kicked me out of Sophia's birthday? The same guy who's been bad-mouthing me online? The same guy who let me guess wants another favor? It's not like that, she insisted, but there was something in her voice, a hesitation. And I knew. Holy shit, I stopped myself. He does need something, doesn't he? Mom exhaled sharply. Derek just needs a little help getting back on his feet. I barked out a laugh. Unbelievable. What is it this time? Another car? An apartment? Let me guess he finally burned through his GoFundMe cash? You don't have to be so mean, she snapped. I grinned. Oh, but I do. Fine, she huffed. If you must know, Derek's been struggling to find work. He's in a bad place, sweetheart. He put himself there. He's your brother. And silence. I let it stretch, let the weight of my indifference settle on her, and then I twisted the knife. You didn't care about me when he shut me out, I said, voice cold. You stood there and let him humiliate me. You didn't stop him. You didn't say a word. That's not fair, I cut her off. And now that he's suffering, suddenly we're family again? Another silence. Then, finally, she sighed. So, you're not coming? No, Mom, I'm not coming. And for the first time in my life, I hung up first. I thought that was the end of it, that my parents would sulk, Derek would wallow in his misery, and I'd return to the peace I craved. But Derek? Derek was always so predictable. That Saturday, at exactly 7:42 p.m., my doorbell rang. Bang, bang, bang. I sighed, already knowing who it was and how this was going to unfold. Derek was about to beg, and I was about to savor every second of it. I took my time opening the door, letting him stew in his impatience. When I finally swung it open, Derek stood there, hands shoved deep in his pockets, eyes wild, his mouth already forming some half-baked excuse. I couldn't help but smirk. No dinner at Mom's? His jaw clenched. Let me in. I leaned casually against the doorframe. Why? His nostrils flared. Because we need to talk. I pretended to think it over. Yeah, no. I started closing the door, but he shoved his foot between it, and that was his mistake. All right, I said, pushing the door open just enough to step onto the porch. Say what you came to say, then leave. Derek exhaled sharply. Look, man, I know we've had our differences. I laughed. Oh, is that what we're calling it? He glared, but pushed on. I just need a little help, all right? There it was. I crossed my arms. Let me guess. Money? His eye twitched. That GoFundMe didn't stretch as far as you thought, huh? I tilted my head. Or did Mom and Dad finally tell you they weren't covering your lazy ass anymore? He snapped, face flushing bright red. I grinned. Why? Am I wrong? He inhaled sharply, running a hand down his face, his voice dropping into a desperate whisper. I just need a loan, okay? I raised an eyebrow. Oh, so now I'm good enough to help? Derek swallowed, looking like a cornered animal. I messed up, all right. I get it. I went too far. I stared at him, and for a second I almost believed him. But then I saw it the same entitled glint in his eyes, that same expectation that I'd cave. He always thought I would. And that's when I smiled, stepping closer. Oh, buddy, I said, my voice low. I don't lend money. His face fell. Ooh. I leaned in, voice smooth but final. I give money. For a brief, flickering moment, his eyes lit up, and then I crushed his hope. But only to people who deserve it. The light in his eyes went out. I patted his shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. You'll figure it out, champ. Then, without another word, I slammed the door in his face. That was the last time Derek ever came to me for help. A week later, I heard through Emily that he had finally landed a job. Not a great one, but a job. A paycheck that wasn't mine. And for the first time in ages, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel spite. I just felt free. Because for once, Derek had to stand on his own 2 feet. And for the first time in my life, I had 0 regrets about letting him fall. 6 months. That's how long it had been since I shut the door on Derek, since I stopped answering my mother's guilt-tripping calls, since I finally realized I wasn't responsible for fixing his life. In those 6 months, pure peace. No more urgent money requests, no more entitled messages, no more being treated like a walking ATM. Just silence. But as days passed, while I still relished the relief of not being my family's personal bank, doubt began to sneak in. I scrolled through my phone, looking at the messages I had ignored my mother's guilt trips, my father's passive attempts to reason, and Derek's angry outbursts. It was all predictable, but something gnawed at me. Had I been too harsh? I wasn't second-guessing cutting them off financially. No, that was long overdue, but had I gone too far in walking away completely? In leaving Sophia behind? That thought settled heavily in my chest. I had always made sure she had what she needed not because Derek asked, but because she was just a kid. She had no say in her father's mistakes, and now she was caught in the middle of it all. I opened Reddit, hesitated for a moment, and then typed out my post. AITA for cutting off my entitled brother and parents, even though it means my niece might suffer? I laid it all out, the years of financial support, the insults, the entitlement, the Christmas ban, and my decision to finally say enough. But I also shared my doubt, the part of me that wondered if I was punishing the wrong person, if there was a way to maintain my boundaries without completely disappearing. I hit post and waited. The responses came fast. You are not the asshole. Your brother made his bed, let him lie in it. Your niece has other family. You're not her only lifeline. You're feeling guilty because you're a good person, but don't let that guilt drag you back into a toxic situation. One comment stood out. If you want to be there for Sophia, do it directly. Set up a savings account in her name. Buy her gifts separately, but don't let your brother guilt you into funding his life again. I exhaled, reading it over a few times. That actually made sense. I didn't have to throw myself back into the fire to make sure Sophia was okay. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of clarity. I picked up my phone, scrolling past the dozens of messages from Derek and my parents, and instead, I typed out a text to Emily. "Hey, I want to help Sophia, but I'm not giving Derek another cent. Let's talk." And just like that, I had my answer. What do you do when you realize that no matter how much you give, your family will always see you as nothing more than a resource? Do you keep sacrificing, or do you walk away and finally put yourself first? For years, the narrator had been the one holding everything together, paying for parties, bailing out his brother, and quietly taking the abuse. But when Derek crossed the line at Sophia's birthday, mocking him and calling him a loser, something inside snapped. No more. What followed was a powerful lesson in boundaries. The narrator's decision to walk away, to stop being the family's financial crutch, forced Derek and their parents to confront the consequences of their actions. The drama that unfolded after the narrator cut ties showed exactly how deep the entitlement ran, and it left Derek scrambling to fix his mess without the safety net he had come to rely on. So, what do you think? Was the narrator right to cut them off completely, or should he have kept helping? Have you ever had to step back and reevaluate your role in a toxic family dynamic? Let's talk about it in the comments, and if you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.